Ralph Yarl, the black teenager who survived a bullet to the head after ringing the wrong doorbell nearly a year ago, is finally facing the true toll of that fateful day. At times, 17-year-old Yarl retreats from the world, ignoring the calls and texts of those who care for him. He even skipped senior prom out of fear of being asked about the shooting, unsure how he would respond. The injury has also affected his ability to process complex information as he once did. The tragic event has left Yarl with a tumultuous mix of emotions: anger, hope, sorrow, and empathy. In his first in-depth interview since the incident, he admits that the journey to recovery has not been smooth. When something happens that reminds me of what happened, all these negative emotions come rushing back. Anger, disgust, he shares. Some days are good and some days are bad. The good days are when I'm around people who lift me up. His family members reveal that Yarl has struggled to come to terms with what happened to him. He downplays the severity of it all, says his mother, Cleo Nagbe. But trauma doesn't work that way. The body will process it when it's ready. I knew this was coming. There are moments when he just wants to disappear, she adds. Aside from physical wounds, including an uneven scar on his forehead where the bullet grazed his skull and left him with a traumatic brain injury, Nagbe also shares that her son has been dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety, which may have contributed to 2 recent car accidents where Yarl totaled both vehicles, one of which involved crashing into a tree. According to Yarl, surviving the shooting has made him prioritize his mental health. It's a constant battle uphill, he admits. A year ago, he was simply trying to pick up his younger siblings, but a tragic mistake led him to the wrong house. When Yarl rang that damn doorbell, 85-year-old Andrew Lester didn't think twice before pulling out his handgun and firing shots. One grazed Yarl's head. The other hit his arm. Lester called the cops, claiming he was acting in self-defense. But those few seconds of fear have changed everything for Yarl. Now, every stranger's glance or kindly word makes him tense up, wondering if they too could turn on him with a loaded weapon. I used to be able to trust people, Yarl said, bitterness lacing his words. Now, I can't even ring a damn doorbell without feeling like I'm risking my life. Not surprisingly, Yarl's shooting sparked national outrage and calls for Lester's arrest. He was eventually charged with first-degree assault and armed criminal action, but pleaded not guilty. The trial is set to begin in October. Yarl's trauma runs deep. He struggles to interact with others and second-guesses every decision he makes. And it doesn't help that his hometown of Kansas City has seen a sharp rise in gun violence in recent years. Last year alone, there were a record-breaking 182 homicides. Staley High School, where Yarl attends, stands behind him and wants his story to serve as a wake-up call for their community. But despite the protests and demonstrations that followed his shooting, Yarl can't help but feel like a failure for not being able to stop the violence. We haven't learned anything, he bitterly states as he looks at the rising homicide rates around him. He had hoped his experience would make a difference, but it seems guns still prevail over peaceful solutions. It eats away at him every day. Yarl's shooting wasn't the only tragedy that affected his classmates this year. There was also the shooting at the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade, leaving 1 dead and 20 injured, as well as another near their high school during a basketball game. Samaria Bossel, 18, a fellow student at Staley High School, believes these incidents should be addressed openly in schools. We need to talk more about it, she states. When the shooting happened last year, there was an announcement made but no real discussion about it, and the counselors were only available for a short time. Bossel suggests implementing gun awareness education and promoting student-led town halls on the issue of gun violence. Another classmate, 15-year-old Cadence Bird, agrees that something needs to change in regards to gun violence in Kansas City schools and throughout the city. She recalls being at the Super Bowl parade when shots rang out just feet away from her. It's scary, Bird shares. And seeing so many people in panic, it's traumatizing. Yarl adds that most of the violence within their community stems from petty arguments and a misguided belief that firearms can solve problems. But aside from physical injuries, Yarl knows there may be long-term effects from his brain injury. However, he doesn't dwell on them. Heather Pilkington, executive director of the Brain Injury Association of Kansas and Greater Kansas City, explains how brain injuries can often go unnoticed because they are invisible disabilities. Internally, there may be battles just to function. Pilkington explains. Over time, someone could suffer a loss of thought process, motor functions, or even hearing and vision. Despite any potential challenges ahead, Yarl remains resilient and has become a symbol of hope for others dealing with similar injuries. Next month, he will be honored by Pilkington's organization during their annual walk and run. She describes him as a miracle and admires his incredible quality of life. But for Yarl, life looks very different now. His mother recalls how they used to look forward to family trips, but now their travels consist of therapy sessions. I wish I was doing better, she admits sadly. You start to realize that life isn't what it used to be. His aunt, Faith Spoonmore, also struggles with the aftermath of the shooting. We feel stuck, she says. He's so far away. He just wants to be Ralph. Spoonmore shares how the impending trial hangs over his head, adding even more weight to an already difficult situation. As his classmates chat about which one of their parents will buy a new car, Yarl sits with them, his hands folded in his lap. But amidst the conversation, he cracks a smile and wipes away tears. For a brief moment, we catch a glimpse of the happy-go-lucky teenager who loved being in the high school band and joking around with friends. But then reality sets back in, and we remember the toll that gun violence has taken on not just Yarl, but his entire community. In an April 2024 interview with NBC, Yarl and his family shared their thoughts.
1 year ago, Ralph Yarl was just 16 years old. He loved nature walks with family, jumping on trampolines, and playing in his high school band. That was Ralph before April 13th, 2023. This is Ralph now.
I've tried to keep a sort of sense of normalcy so that I can continue being the person that I am and that I used to be.
Forever changed when he rang the doorbell of the wrong home while trying to pick up his twin brothers. And 85-year-old Andrew Lester shot him twice in the head and arm. Ralph's survival deemed a miracle.
Would you say it's been harder to physically recover or mentally recover?
Definitely mentally, but it's a constant uphill battle.
Ralph suffered splitting headaches. Always an A student, he now struggles to study. In the last few months, he crashed his car twice. His mother and aunt say sometimes he can't sleep. Other times, he sleeps too much.
When you have trauma, initially there's the shock of all of it. But then when everything starts to simmer, and then you start to realize how life is not what it used to be.
Ralph and his friends are struggling to process 3 shootings in their hometown over the last year. Ralph's a classmate's killing, and the Kansas City Chiefs parade shooting.
It's like a constant nagging of watch your surroundings.
Going to houses and stuff, I'm like, this is the right address. I can't get this wrong.
In October, Andrew Lester, who has pled not guilty and told police he was scared to death, will stand trial for Ralph's shooting.
Mr. Lester is currently comfortable, enjoying his old age.
Ralph hasn't even considered forgiving the man, who in an instant brought his childhood to an end.
Has he ever asked for your forgiveness?
No.
The family speaking out to remind the country, we can't forget. We can't become desensitized.
We are tired of people saying that you're in my thoughts and prayers. We need to get out of your thoughts and your prayers and get into your actions.